Society has sold you a very comfortable, very dangerous lie. It's a lie that has been repeated in classrooms, in corporate boardrooms, and at dinner tables that most people accept it as the absolute truth. The lie is this: your life, your value, and your financial destiny are determined by what you do between the hours of 9 a.m. and 5 p.m. They tell you that if you just work hard enough during those 8 hours, if you just please the right manager, hit the right quotas, and climb the right ladder, you will eventually be rewarded with wealth and freedom. But I have lived a very long time. I have watched generations of people buy into this lie, and I have watched them wake up at 65, exhausted, confused, and terrified, wondering where all the money went and why the freedom never arrived. Here is the brutal truth that the system does not want you to understand. The hours between 9 a.m. and 500 p.m. do not renting them out. You are trading them simply to survive, to pay the mortgage, to keep the lights on, and to put food on the table. Those 8 hours will keep you alive, but they will never make you rich. Your true wealth, your ultimate freedom, and the entire trajectory of your life are determined entirely by what you choose to do between 6 p.m. and midnight. Think about your evening. You walk through the front door at 6 p.m. You are physically tired, yes, but more than that, you are mentally drained. You have spent the last 8 hours solving problems for someone else, building someone else's dream. The couch looks incredibly inviting. The television screen promises an escape. The endless scroll of social media offers a quick hit of cheap dopamine. Psychologists have a term for what most people do next. They call it revenge bedtime procrastination. You feel that you had no control over your day, so you take revenge by staying up late, consuming mindless entertainment. You are trying to reclaim a sense of freedom by doing absolutely nothing. But this is not freedom. This is an anesthetic. You are numbing the pain of a life you do not fully own. And in doing so, you are handing over the only hours of the day that actually belong to you. When I was a young man starting out, my days were busy, but my real work, the work that built Berkshire Hathaway, the work that compounded into billions of dollars, didn't happen in a bustling office. It happened in the dead of night. While my neighbors were out drinking on their porches or sitting in front of the television watching the evening broadcast, I was in my quiet, just me, a desk lamp, and a stack of annual reports that most people would find unbearably boring. I committed to reading 500 pages a day. And let me tell you, you cannot read 500 pages of dense financial text while the sun is up and the phone is ringing, that deep when the rest of the world is asleep or distracted. I wasn't smarter than the guys on Wall Street. I wasn't born with a magical gift for picking stocks. I just understood the math of time. If they were spending their evenings at cocktail parties or watching TV, and I was spending my evenings studying the inner workings of American businesses, it was only a matter of time before I pulled ahead. The math was inevitable. The 1% treats the evening as the time to recover from work. When the clock strikes 6 p.m., the rules change. You are no longer an employee. You are the CEO of your own life. The decisions you make in the next 6 hours will dictate whether you spend the next 30 years taking orders or giving them. The question isn't whether you are tired. Of course you are tired. The question is, what are you going to do when nobody is paying you? Because the work you do when you are off the clock is the only work that will ever truly set you free. And if you think you don't have the energy or you don't know where to start, then I need you to listen very carefully to what I'm about to tell you. Because there is a specific rule, a rule my partner Charlie Muir discovered years ago that can instantly shift how you view your evenings forever. Charlie Muir was not always a billionaire. Long before we built Berkshire Hathaway together, Charlie was a lawyer in California. And I want you to understand that his life was not easy. He was incredibly smart, yes, overwhelmed, and at one point completely broken. People look at Charlie as an old, wealthy sage, but they forget the years when he was struggling. He went through a devastating divorce. He lost his 9-year-old son to leukemia. He was financially wiped out and living in a terrible apartment. Every single day he put on a suit, went to his law firm, and solved complex, exhausting problems for his clients. He gave them his sharpest focus. He gave them his highest energy. He gave them his absolute best hours. And every evening he came home completely drained. He had nothing left in the tank for himself or for his own financial future. He was trapped in the exact same cycle of exhaustion and survival that keeps the middle class broke today. He realized that if he continued on this path, he might become a successful lawyer, but he would never become truly wealthy. And more importantly, he would never become truly free. You see, Charlie realized something profound about the human brain, something that most people never figure out. Willpower is not an infinite resource. It is not a muscle that just stays strong all day. It is exactly like a battery on your smartphone. You wake up with a full charge, and every single decision you make, every email you answer, every annoying coworker you tolerate, every traffic jam you navigate drains that battery a little bit more. By the time 6 p.m. rolls around, your willpower battery is blinking in the red. It is completely dead. Your brain doesn't want to think about investments. Your brain doesn't want to brainstorm side businesses. Your brain doesn't want to learn new difficult skills. Your brain just wants dopamine. It wants comfort. It wants to turn off. And this brings us to the most dangerous trap of the modern world. The modern economy is perfectly brilliantly designed to exploit this exact moment of your daily exhaustion. I call it the dopamine tax. When you are tired, you are highly vulnerable. This is the exact moment when the streaming services autoplay the next episode, knowing you are too tired to reach for the remote and turn it off. This is the exact moment when social media algorithms feed you endless outrage and mindless entertainment, keeping your eyes glued to the screen. This is when food delivery apps tempt you to spend money you don't have on calories you don't need, simply because cooking requires energy you no longer possess. The system knows you are exhausted. The billionaires who own these platforms have engineered them specifically to capture your attention when your defenses are down. They are taxing your remaining time, and they are taxing your remaining attention. Charlie saw this trap decades before the internet even existed. He realized that if he waited until the end of the day to build his own wealth, he would always be too tired. The television would always be too tempting. The couch would always be too soft. So he made a radical, uncomfortable decision. A decision that changed the trajectory of his life and eventually mine as well. Charlie decided that he was going to become his own most valuable client. He asked himself a very simple but very painful question. Who is the most important person I am? Law firm. The honest answer wasn't his prestigious law firm. The answer wasn't his wealthy clients. The answer was Charlie Muir. So he instituted a rule that I want you to write down, print out, and tape to your bathroom mirror. He called it selling yourself an hour. Before he gave a single minute of his mental energy to his law firm, before he answered a single phone call from a client, he sold his best, most productive hour to himself. He paid himself first, not with money, but with the most valuable asset in the universe, time. He used that golden hour when his mind was fresh to study construction projects, to analyze complex real estate deals, and to read deep financial histories. He built his escape pod while the rest of the world was sleeping. Now, I understand your reality. Maybe you cannot carve out an hour in the morning. Maybe your kids need to be fed, or your commute is 2 hours long, or your shift starts at dawn. That is fine. But if you cannot take the morning, you must violently defend your evening. You must apply Charlie's rule the moment you get home. When you walk through that door at 6 p.m., you must no longer an employee of that company. You must instantly rehire yourself as a CEO of your own holding company. You have to look at the hours between 6 p.m. midnight, not as free time to be wasted, but as raw capital to be invested. Every hour you spend scrolling on your phone is an hour of capital you are setting on fire. Every hour you spend binge watching a television show about someone else's fake life is an hour you are stealing from your own real life. You are paying the dopamine tax, and let me assure you it is the most expensive tax in the world, because it doesn't just cost you a few dollars a month in subscription fees. It costs you your future. It costs you your freedom. If you do not own your evening, I guarantee you someone else does. The advertisers own it, the streaming platforms own it, the massive corporations own it. They are getting richer and richer off your daily exhaustion. You must take those hours back. You must defend them like your life depends on it, because financially speaking, it does. A man who cannot control his own evenings will never, ever control his own destiny. But taking your evening back is only the first step of the equation. Sitting in an empty room staring at the wall won't make you rich either. What you actually do with those reclaimed hours is what separates the dreamers from the builders. The poor believe they just need to work more hours. They think they need to go out and get a second job. But working at a cash register until midnight might pay off a credit card, but it will never, ever make you wealthy. What you need is not a second job. What you need is a second skill. And the way you build that skill requires understanding the fundamental critical difference between passive relaxation and active relaxation. This is a difference that the middle class gets completely wrong. Next, when I tell people that they need to reclaim their evenings, the most common response I get is one of sheer panic. They say, Warren, I am already exhausted. You want me to come home and work another 5 hours? You want me to hustle until midnight and burn myself out completely? But this is exactly where the misunderstanding lies. I am not telling you to work yourself to death. I am telling you to completely redefine what it means to rest. You see, society has taught you a very narrow definition of relaxation. You have been conditioned to believe that the only way to recover from a hard day of work is to completely shut off your brain, still on the couch, staring at a glowing rectangle, letting someone else's thoughts wash over you. This is what I call passive relaxation. Passive relaxation includes watching television, scrolling through social media, drinking alcohol, or playing video games. It is passive because you are entirely in consumption mode. You are not creating, you are not thinking, and you are not growing. You are simply existing in a state of suspended animation. Now, there is a time and a place for passive relaxation, but if that is the only way you know how to recover, you are in serious financial danger. Because passive relaxation does not actually recharge your energy. It simply numbs the stress temporarily. When you wake up the next morning after 4 hours of Netflix, you do not feel invigorated. You feel sluggish. You feel anxious. You feel a deep underlying sense of dread because you know deep down that you have just traded another piece of your finite life for absolutely nothing in return. The billionaires, the innovators, the people who actually escape the middle class trap do not rely on passive relaxation. They rely on active relaxation. Active relaxation is engaging your mind in a task that is challenging but fundamentally different from your day job. It is an activity where you are in control, where there is no boss breathing down your neck, where you are building something for yourself. Let me tell you a story about a young engineer in the 1970s. His name was Steve Wozniak. Steve had a very demanding, high-pressure day job working for Hewlett-Packard. He spent all day designing calculators. It was grueling, deeply technical work. By 6 p.m., a normal person would have gone home, grabbed a beer, and collapsed in front of the television. But Steve didn't do that. Steve went home, ate a quick dinner, and immediately went to his workbench. He spent his evening soldering circuits, writing code, and building primitive computer prototypes. He wasn't doing it because a manager told him to. He was doing it because it was fun. Building computers in his garage was his version of relaxation. It was play. And because it felt like play, he could do it for hours without feeling the exhaustion of a day job. That evening hobby, that active relaxation, eventually became a little company called Apple Computer. When people look at my life, they see me reading annual reports, financial statements, and business histories for 6 to 8 hours a day. They ask me, Warren, how do you force yourself to do so much boring work? And I always laugh because they completely misunderstand what I think. Reading those reports is not a chore for me. It is a detective novel. It is a puzzle. It is my active relaxation. I am hunting for buried treasure in those pages. It looks like grueling work to the outside observer, but to me it feels like play. And this is the great secret. You must internalize. You must find the thing that looks like work to others but feels like play to you. If you can find that one thing, you will never have to force yourself to be productive in the evening again. This brings me to a crucial point about building wealth. The poor and the middle class believe that the only way to get out of debt is to work more hours. They go out and get a second job. They work the cash register at a retail store, or they drive for a ride-sharing app until midnight. A second job will destroy your soul, and it will destroy your body. You are simply trading your physical exhaustion for a few extra dollars. You're paying a massive tax rate and moving no closer to true freedom. A second job pays you a fixed hourly wage. A second job pays you scales infinitely. If you spend your evenings learning how to code, learning how to analyze real estate, learning digital marketing, or building a small online business, you are building an asset that can eventually decouple your income from your time. And here is the biological truth that will shock you. When you come home at 6 p.m. and you feel completely drained, your brain is not actually out of energy. Your brain is simply bored. It is fatigued by the monotony and the stress of your day job. It is craving novelty. It is craving a challenge that you actually care about. The moment you sit down to work on your own project, your own skill, your own business, you will be amazed at how quickly that exhaustion vanishes. A new surge of energy will flood your system because for the first time all day, you are finally working for the most important person in the world. You are working for yourself. But knowing what to do is only half the battle. The real challenge is actually executing it day after day, which is why I am going to give you the exact 3-step blueprint that you must follow every single evening starting tonight. If you want to break out of the 9 to F5 matrix forever, if you want to build wealth that lasts generations, you cannot rely on motivation. Motivation is a fragile emotional state that disappears the moment you feel tired, hungry, or stressed. What you need instead is a system, a ruthless, unbreakable that you follow every single evening, regardless of how you feel. I am going to give you the exact 3-step blueprint used by the maximum leverage. This is not theory, this is the mechanical architecture of success. Step 1 begins the exact moment you walk through your front door. I call it the disconnect. For most people, the boundary between work and home is completely collapsed. They come home, they sit on the couch, and they continue to check work emails, complain about their boss to their spouse, and carry the anxiety of the office straight into their living room. You must understand that carrying the psychological weight of your day job into your evening completely destroys your ability to create. You cannot build a financial empire if your mind is still stuck in a cubicle. It takes place as a physical and mental ritual that takes place between 6 p.m. and 7 p.m. The moment you walk in, you must immediately change your clothes. You must take off the uniform of the employee, whatever that is for you, and put on the clothes of the owner. You put your work phone in a drawer and you do not look at it until the next morning. You do not complain about your day. You take 30 minutes to eat a healthy dinner and you take a walk outside to clear your mental cache. This hour is a buffer zone. It is the airlock between the world where you take orders and the world where you give them. By 700 p.m., you're completely decoupled from your corporate identity. Which brings us to step 2, the deep work window. This is the most important part of your entire day. From 7:00 p.m., you are going into complete isolation for exactly 120 minutes. You are entirely unreachable to the outside world. You turn off the Wi-Fi on your phone. You put it in another room. You close the door. You are stepping into the arena. During this 2-hour block, you are going to engage in the active relaxation we discussed earlier. You're going to read the financial reports, write the code, study the real estate market, or build the business plan. 2 hours might not sound a secret about focus. 2 hours of pure, uninterrupted, deep work is infinitely more valuable than 8 hours of distracted, half-hearted corporate shuffling. In a normal office environment, a worker is interrupted every 11 minutes by a Slack message, an email, or a colleague. They never achieve a flow state. But when you sit alone in your room from 7 to 9 p.m. with 0 distractions, you are operating at peak cognitive capacity. If you do this 5 days a week, you are accumulating 10 hours of deep work every single week. That is 500 hours of elite level skill building every single year. Do you understand how massive that is? While your peers are spending 500 hours watching fictional characters on television, you are spending 500 hours compounding your own intellectual capital. Within 3 years, the gap in skill, knowledge, and wealth between you and them will be so massive, it will look like you possess some sort of unfair advantage. And you did. Your unfair advantage was the deep work window. Now, after those 2 hours, you will feel tired, but it will be a different kind of tired. It will be a satisfying, victorious exhaustion, the exhaustion of the builder. This brings us to step 3, the final hour of the evening. From 9 p.m. to 10 p.m., you execute the tomorrow setup. Most people fail at life because they wake up in the morning and have to figure out what to do. They wake up, they look at their phone, and they let the world dictate their agenda for the day. Let me be very clear. If you are deciding what to do in the morning, you have already lost the day. The morning is for execution. The evening is for strategy. During the tomorrow setup, you are going to plan the exact sequence of your next day. You write down the 3 most important tasks you need to accomplish. You lay out your clothes. You pack your gym bag. You clear your physical workspace so that it is perfectly clean. I leave it completely empty except for the one single document I need to review the moment I sit down the next morning. By doing this, I completely eliminate decision fatigue. When I wake up, I don't have to think. I just have to execute the plan that the smarter, more strategic evening version of myself created. You are passing the baton to your future self. If you master the disconnect, the deep work window, and the tomorrow setup, you will transform your evening from a passive wasteland of exhaustion into the most powerful wealth-generating engine in your life. But I must warn you about what is going to happen next. Because if you actually implement this system, your life is going to change very quickly, and you are going to encounter a psychological barrier that destroys almost everyone who tries to escape the middle class. It is a silent, lonely trap, and it is the absolute hardest part of becoming wealthy. I am here, my friend. Forgive the technical interruption. Let us finish what we started and build this final, most important piece of the puzzle. We have covered the psychology of the dopamine tax, the necessity of active relaxation, and the exact 3-step blueprint you must follow every evening. But if I stopped there, I would be doing you a terrible disservice. Because knowing the mechanics of success on a piece of paper, the difficult part, the part that destroys 99% of the people who attempt to build wealth, is the emotional reality of executing that schedule day after day, year after year. I call this final phase the silent years. When you begin to reclaim your evenings, you are going to experience a profound sense of isolation. When the clock strikes 7:00 p.m. and you enter your deep work window, your phone is still going to ring. Your friends are still going to text you. They are going to invite you to the bar down the street. They are going to invite you to watch the big game. They're going to ask you to come over and do absolutely nothing, just like you used to do. And you are going to have to look them in the eye or send them a message and say no. You are going to have to say no, not just once, but hundreds of times. You are going to have to watch from the sidelines as everyone else is out having cheap, immediate fun while you're fine in a quiet room, reading financial statements, writing code, or building a business plan. And here is the brutal truth that nobody wants to tell you. For the first year and maybe even the second year, you are going to see absolutely zero financial return for your sacrifice. You will spend 500 hours working in the evenings, and your bank account will look exactly the same. You will feel like you are throwing your life away. The temptation to quit, to go back to the couch, to go back to the passive relaxation of the middle class will be overwhelming. Your friends will start to whisper. They will call you obsessed. They will tell you that you are working too hard, that you need to enjoy life, that you only live once. They will try to drag you back down to their level because your discipline makes them feel incredibly uncomfortable about their own laziness. This is the crucible. This is the exact moment where the separation of wealth occurs. The poor man looks at the lack of immediate results, listens to the mockery of his friends, and quits. He trades his future for a Friday night at the pub. The wealthy man, the man with the billionaire mindset, understands the concept of compounding. Compounding does not just apply to money. It applies to knowledge. It applies to skill. It applies to discipline. In the early years, the compounding is invisible. It is happening beneath the surface. You are building a foundation, but you must trust the math. If you continue to invest 2 hours every single evening into your intellectual and financial capital while the rest of it is decaying in front of a screen, the math eventually takes over. Around year 3 or 4, the curve begins to bend upward. You spot an investment opportunity that nobody else sees because you read the obscure report that nobody else read. Your side business finally generates enough cash flow to cover your mortgage. Your unique skill set makes you so incredibly valuable that your income doubles and then triples. Suddenly, the compounding becomes visible to everyone, and the exact same friends who mocked you for staying home, the ones who called you obsessed, will suddenly ask you for a loan. They will call you lucky. They will say you were at the right place at the right time. They will never acknowledge the thousands of silent, lonely evenings you spent sitting at a desk while they were busy being entertained. The truth is, the price of freedom is paid in advance, and it is usually paid in the dark. You cannot have a top 1% life if you are living a 99% evening. It is mathematically impossible. So as we bring this masterclass to a close, I want to leave you with one final thought tonight when the sun goes down and you walk through your front door. I want you to stop for a moment, look around your living room, look at the television, look at the couch and ask yourself a very serious question. Who am I actually working for? Am I working for the streaming services? Am I working for the advertisers? Am I working to numb the pain of a life I don't want? Or am I working for my own freedom? The choice is entirely yours. You have the blueprint. You know the traps. The only thing standing between you and the life you want is the decision you make at 6 p.m. tonight. Do not waste it. Do not let them steal your time. Take your evening back. Take your life back. Because time is the only currency you can never, ever earn back. Thank you for listening.